Welcome to the Growing Gills Book Club. This is day 4. We are doing chapter 3, Open Loops, today. And I wanted to start off, as usual, with a little bit of a review and just kind of questioning like how things are going for you guys. And since what we talked about on Friday was idea debt, and in particular, how to identify and think about idea debt type N for nostalgia, meaning things that you are carrying with you that are perhaps not things you want to be doing anymore and actually not what you should be spending your time on. Things that belong to an earlier version of yourself. So if you have something that you've decided to not do, um, that was on your idea debt list, please post it in the chat. And I have a feeling we're probably going to have a little bit of a delay here because it took a while for the live video to start, but I believe we're going now. I see people saying hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So first thing I want you to do is to post something that you decided belonged to idea debt type N and that you archived this weekend. So let's post that. And any thoughts and questions you have about idea debt, please go ahead and get those into the chat as well. Today we're going to talk about open loops. So open loops is a concept that comes from, or a name that comes from Getting Things Done by David Allen. And really, in some ways, was the beginning of my journey with getting towards better creative focus. When I read Getting Things Done, it was just there are a lot of concepts in there that were really important to me. Ooh, I see some stuff showing up in the chat. That's awesome. So Amy Fish says, not writing a mystery and not writing about Quebec and not learning watercolors. Congratulations, Amy. That's awesome. I'm sure it means you are doing something that you care about a lot, and that's what's most important. Allie is not going to try to master fine art drawing skills. That will save you a lot of time, Allie. Liz has archived, at least for now, several paper crafting projects. Annette is not going to turn her dissertation into a book. Good for you. All right. Pamela has put away the idea of starting a podcast. I'd rather be a guest. I definitely type N. I hear you there. I go back and forth between these things. I do want to do another podcast season at some point, but I keep thinking like, what am I doing this for? And trying to get really specific about that. And then occasionally, head towards wanting to do more, and then mostly pull back and say, I'd rather be a guest. I think that's pretty it. Okay, Joanne loved my not threes. This week, not posting my 100-day project, even though I'm successfully doing it, not researching this week in order to actually be writing. Awesome, that's really great. So not threes, idea debt type N are just a matter of scale, basically. It's the same thing. Consciously deciding not to do something is so important in terms of clearing your mental bandwidth. So the not threes idea, which we made up together last week, is what are you not going to do tomorrow? What are you going to not do in the immediate future in order to clear up space for things that you are going to do? Archiving or deleting idea debt type N is about, in a much larger sense, packing up and putting away things and saying goodbye to things that you just don't want to do and that don't actually align with your goals of today. And so those things may be much bigger than what you would put on your not threes list, as it were. This seems really great. You guys are jumping in right away with lots of great stuff. Thank you for posting that. Keep going with that. I'm going to get back to open loops. So open loops, very pivotal concept for me. When I read Getting Things Done, it was, I believe it was 2006 or 7. And I had been going, I had like a really busy life at that point. I had lots of stuff going on. My book La Perdida came out in 2006. I had a bunch of book tour things going on. I had a French edition and a Spanish edition coming out and did tours for those things. I had I was working on drawing words and writing pictures. I was working on Life Sucks. I was still trying to finish up a YA novel that I never published. Like there's way too many projects. Like, oh my God. And just life stuff, tons of life stuff. And I had lists and things, but a lot of times I would just try to keep it all in my head, just keep all of those jobs and things to be done in my head, or I had a list over here and a list over there. And the core concept of getting things done that I took away and that I incorporated then into the Creative Focus workshop and into Growing Gills is this idea of downloading everything. Don't try to keep it in your head. Get it out of your head and put it into a system, put it into a place. That system can be a pad of paper. It does not need to be a text system. For a lot of people, it is. Does not need to be. That's not what it's about. And so I did this thing that we're doing in Open Loops of like a life audit, go around everywhere in the house and identify stuff that were open loops. And so for the Open Loops chapter, I recommend you start with just an hour and just in your workspace because that's the context we're here for. But you can do this for everything and everywhere. And so, the process of going through all those things can be really draining. It can also derail you into thinking like you got to close all these loops rather than do the main thing. And so it's tricky territory, and I just want to give you a heads up about that. Oh, great stuff coming in. Awesome, you guys. So let's just talk about why our open loop's a problem. Basically, once I downloaded all that stuff, and once I went through and like I lived in we have a house in Brooklyn. We had a house in Brooklyn, and we were renovating the house, and so among other things, there were like little renovation and repair projects like everywhere around me. And so when I wrote all those things down and had them in one place, I didn't have to think about them. I knew it was there. I could think about it and go like, oh yeah, it's on the list. I'm gonna prioritize that and get to that when I get to that. And so I found just an immediate, like, my anxiety level up here to zoop down to here once I got it all out of my head. And so regardless of the question of are you going to close those loops or which things are most important and all the other stuff that needs to come afterwards, the main thing is it's not in your head all the time. Okay, that's the main point of this, is just get it out of your head. It's not necessarily to close all the loops. I got to tell you, some of these loops are never going to be closed. You are not going to finish your to-do list. There is no such thing as finishing your to-do list. So it's very, very important to know that, to own it, and to say to yourself, it's fine. Like some loops will get closed, some won't, but at least I know what they are and I don't have to process. Why is processing such a problem? So this is where we get to the key of it. Why is all that processing a problem? I liken it to RAM in a computer. When you have a computer like my handy little laptop here, which is so wonderful, but like it is right now, the fan just came on and it's like blowing because it's working really hard to manage all the stuff I'm asking it to do in RAM. And on Friday, probably wasn't a problem, but it could also have been a RAM problem that like I'm trying to run this off a laptop. It doesn't have the power to compute all these things at the same time. It's not meant for this kind of work, really. Hoping to switch to a desktop at some point in the near future. So, at least for this kind of work. So hopefully that'll help the problem. But the main thing is like the RAM, which is the, random access memory, the memory that's active, things are actively in it, is working really hard. And the fan is blowing because it's so hot, because it's running too much stuff at the same time. So our brains also have the equivalent of RAM. We have a certain amount of bandwidth for active processing. And when you are filling that up with trying to remember a bunch of stuff and worry about which things need to get done and decide constantly, am I going to do that? Am I not going to do that? Am I going to do this? Am I not going to do that? All that decision fatigue, all of that stuff basically uses up the vast majority of that bandwidth that you have available. I'm mixing metaphors, computer metaphors here. Bandwidth is internet, RAM is in the computer. Let's just talk about RAM. So you're using up all your RAM by all the sort of constant processing of all the stuff, and you have no RAM left to run the process that you need to run, which is making your work. That is why open loops and downloading open loops is so important, is because of that conflict in trying to maintain all the stuff and decide all the stuff versus focus and do the thing. So this is why you need a trusted system. You need a place where you can put these things that you trust, and you need to learn to trust that system by repeatedly trying it, having it work, and trusting it. Like, that's how it works. You have to continue to trust that system by, actually practicing with it. So we're going to talk about actual systems later on, like what these look like. And so we're going to get a chance to talk about apps and whatever. The main thing I want to say, though, is uh, thinking about the system and how you're going to save this stuff can be a huge distraction from actually doing the work. And so if you just use the worksheets in the workbook for now, or just a pad of paper and just like write this stuff up down on a pad of paper, that is totally fine. And you can always upgrade later. You can upgrade your system, upgrade later. But you're going to free up all of this processing power in your brain by getting it all out there into some place that's trusted. But you need to make sure that it's something that you know where it is and it's all one place. That's the most important thing. That's one place, not a note over here and a to-do list over there. Those in and of themselves are open loops. By having those things in different places, you've got to manage all of them. If you have to manage all of them, that's processing power that you could otherwise be devoting to something more important. Um, so, let's see, where are we here? Mm-hmm. So open loops and how they're related to idea debt is another topic I wanted to make sure to talk about here. An unfinished project, like a huge, like a novel or, a podcast or, whatever it is an open loop. It is the mother of all open loops in some sense. It contains many, many open loops within it. But what we're talking about here more specifically are just more tactical things. Like right here in front of me, there's a piece of paper from a bank that I've been trying to get to go paperless, and they keep sending me paper, and I have to call them again. This is an open loop. Or I have to whatever, get online with them again. This is a classic open loop right here. It's sitting on my desk to remind me to do it rather than being on a list someplace where I can just throw the thing away, or whatever. So that is the kind of stuff I'm asking you to go around and talk about. Like I look around me here and there are open loops all around me. Even though my desk is quite clear, I can see the majority of it. It's all, not a lot here, but even the things that are here are open loops. There are tabs on my computer that are open loops. There are pictures sitting on the floor over there that need hanging. There is stuff in my inbox over here, which are like mini projects that I need to figure out if I ever want to devote time to. There's all kinds of things that are here that are open loops. And making sure I know what those things are so that I can properly make decisions in the proper moment about them. That's more the point, not proper decisions, but sitting down and cohesively being able to look at it all and say like, okay, what is important to me and what do I want to finish, given that I'm not going to finish everything, and given that I'm never going to get to the bottom of my to-do list. Which items am I going to devote my precious and very limited processing power to? How much RAM am I going to spend on this? Okay. So all that in there. Any questions about open loops and how open loops work, please get those in the chat. I'm going to pay attention to that for a few minutes here. And make sure you, like, in all caps, write question so I can find it in the chat in case it gets lost here. So make sure you get those in there. Meanwhile, see some great stuff here. Dozens and dozens of open tabs. Yes, so many open tabs. If you need the tabs, here's my little trick for open tabs, is I will actually take a few seconds to have a task like in my task manager. And in the notes field, I will copy paste those URLs. I'll just copy paste them all into it, like wherever, like I need 6 things open for this, it's all there. And when I get to that task, I can pop them all open and they're all there for me, but I don't need to leave them open all the time. I mean, even having tabs open at all is using up RAM on your computer. So if it's using up RAM on your computer, how could it not be using up RAM in your brain? Okay. Open loops in email. Absolutely, my email is totally full of open loops. It's like a bog. I go in there and I'm like, what was I doing here again? I cannot remember. Email is one of the things I've never managed to quite put into my system, where it's like, I get an email, like people who are really good at this, get an email. If you need to do something about it, but you're not going to do it now, you like take the URL of that email and you put it in a task and you say what the task is and then you give it a time. That's the master level. I'm not at that level, I have to tell you. Okay. So Ria says Bear app works well for saving URLs. Yes, that's one I've heard of. I haven't used it, but it's one of the things we can talk about. Definitely when we're talking about systems, that's the kind of thing I want. So if any of you guys have systems you love, be ready to share that with everybody, because that's something that you can very valuably share. Like, here's what it is, here's how it works, here's the top features, here's what to look out for. That kind of information, you can post that in the group, or you can wait for when we talk about systems and do it then. But it's very useful for everybody to have that kind of roundup and have a personal recommendation for something. Teresa says, do I have a master inventory I refer to regularly? Yes, on a daily basis. Now, I don't look at it all on a daily basis, but I do look at, like, I have it in an app called OmniFocus, and it's all in there. And on a weekly basis, I go through everything. I literally go through the entire list, and I usually pretty quickly, uh, zap some stuff into, not literally zap, but like move stuff into like more active process, or I will, um, put it on hold so I don't have to look at it for a while, or, make decisions about it in the moment of weekly review. And we're going to talk about weekly review later in the book. Lot says, too many art things I want to practice. Are these open loops too? Yes. And gets to something else that I want to talk about, which is dilemma. So why are open loops open loops? I mean, obviously there's limited hours in the day, so there's that, right? Like, you just haven't done everything. But when you look at an open loop and you think like, oh, like that feeling is a dead giveaway that there's a dilemma in the middle of it. There's something sitting in the middle there. You've not decided. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to do it. You're afraid of confronting people. You're afraid of, something in there. And you haven't examined it. So when you think about stuff like, and there's people talk about this all the time in this context, wanting to learn all the different art things and practice to get better at blah, 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 blah. There's two things that can happen. One is there are different art forms I want to learn and I can't decide which one to focus on, or I'm stuck learning and I'm not doing the thing itself. And in all of those cases, you're dealing with a dilemma of opportunity cost. So if you do one thing, you're not going to do another thing. And choosing one and like archiving the other and saying like, that would be nice one day, but that's not my focus, is how you're going to get to the point of finishing work that you really care about and that you're really proud of. Like, that is the answer. So those are open loops, because you're thinking like, when you're drawing something, you're thinking, oh, I should be doing my printmaking, right? Whenever you're thinking I should, that's an open loop. And it means you have not faced the dilemma that's in front of you, and you haven't made a conscious decision, and you need to do that. And so getting those things out into your system and spending a little time thinking about the pros and cons of doing this, that, or the other thing, making a decision and getting everything else off the boards is going to clear up a lot of space for you. Liz asked, what if you have too many systems? Huge problem. We often have that problem, and we're going to deal with it when we deal with systems. Just start thinking about like, what do you use for what there? Sarah says, do you have separate systems for homework and family, all just dumped into one system? It's all one system. There are different folders and sort of focus areas for when I'm in one mode or another mode, but it's all in one place so that I can find it all in one place. And I'm actually migrating from gradually from OmniFocus to Notion, which is more collaborative, and I can actually share areas with people. Like, I can share areas with my husband or whatever if we both need to be able to see something. So that's an issue there. Let's see. Dina is one-upping something Julia said, but I don't know what it was, so you need to repost that if you want to. All right, we're getting into a discussion of apps here, and which is fine. It's fine to put that here. But just to let you know, like, we are going to get to specific apps later, but the apps themselves are not going to solve this problem. You need to spend time with the list, making decisions. Do I need to do this? Do I not need to do this? What's more important than something else? Which thing am I going to study? All those kinds of things. That is that's the key to this. It's not where you're going to keep it. Where you're going to keep it is about making sure you trust it and you can find it. That's it. The real work comes with the thinking and the strategic decision making. No app is going to solve this for you. All right, Silas has a question. Can I define open loops as a thing task commitment that needs a specific action from me? In other words, reply to an email, cut the grass, and it's done, at least for the time being. Um, yes, but there are also open loops. I mean, open loops require an action from you. They may not be done like one and done. They may be something that's going to take time. That's a bigger open loop. But yeah, I mean, basically, an open loop is like something you could close if you were to take action. So yes, in that sense, that's true. Um, Longer projects that are sort of big open loops, there can be a bunch of different actions you can close off one at a time. And you'll notice, I'm sure you've noticed this, that if you have a big project with a bunch of different aspects to it, if you can take one piece of that and finish it and close it down, and you can take another piece and finish it, close it down, you increase your focus on the remaining pieces and it all becomes smoother and more streamlined. Like if you're trying to think about all the aspects of a project at the same time, it's the same thing as juggling open loops that are unrelated. You still don't have the bandwidth to do it all. Um, wow, Jim, tell us more about that. So Jim says, can you talk more about the dilemma theory? I'm worried if I close my open loops, I'll have nothing left. Uh, Meaning, if you think that you can actually finish your to-do list, because you would be the first person in humanity I ever knew who could finish your to-do list. Maybe we're thinking about um, open loops and dilemmas in different ways there. Let's see. Okay. And Laura also wants to hear more about decision making and dilemma solving. Okay, so we talked about this more on day 2, last Wednesday. So go and check out that video as well if you missed that. Um, the idea of a dilemma is that it is a choice that you need to make between one or more options where all of the options have both positive and negative externalities. So, meaning, if you do this thing, this good thing will happen, but also you will at least lose out on doing these other things at the minimum, right? You're not going to be able to do these other things. It also may mean, say, you have to confront somebody, like you have to have confrontation. So that's a negative externality. So if you choose one thing, you're going to lose out on other things in some sense or another. You can't do them all. You're choosing between things. And if that dilemma is just what am I going to do in the next hour, you can see how that's very specifically, I'm going to do this thing, I'm not going to do those things. And that means those things are going to be later by an hour, if not never, right? So this is uh, that's the concept of dilemma. And the secret to dilemma, and this is why we have the 5 whys activity in that chapter, which is admittedly tricky to implement. There was an interesting conversation in the group earlier last week where somebody was talking about trying to use the 5 whys and got to the last why was something along the lines of like, why do I care so much about quality or something like that, which is like, whoa, don't go there. No, it's about tactics. It's about actions. It's about, you know, um, why is this iteration of something, more attractive than this iteration of something? Or how can I, use this tool or something like that? It's really important to get down to like brass tacks and actions as opposed to feelings, because feelings just get into a self-blame place way too fast. So uh, the 5 whys, the concept of that, and the reason it's in there, even if it is a little complicated, is that when you look at a dilemma, you need to peel back the layers and say, like, what is the dilemma? Like, what are the positive and negative externalities of these choices that I'm trying to make? So, choosing between one thing and another, how if I choose this thing, is this thing negatively impacted? And what are the positive things about that? Basically, pro-con lists, essentially. But, to do them in a detailed way about everything is like exhausting. So you have to make other kinds of choices. But like the example somebody posted a few minutes ago about like studying different art styles or something like that, or different art techniques. Um, it's a very clear dilemma. Like you have limited hours in your week when you can do study. If you study 3 things at the same time, they will go at least 3 times, if not more like 30 times more slowly than if you choose one and you power through that thing and really focus on that thing. That will give you the power of the sort of multiplicative power of focus on this thing. So that is a big dilemma. because you also want to do all these things and you want to be good at all these things and you feel like those would all be things that would be wonderful in your life. So making that decision is hard, but you are a grown up and you can do it. You can think through which is the most important thing to me now, which is the thing that's going to be most useful to me in these other things that I want to do, which is the thing that if I do this unlocks the next thing. So those are all pieces to making those kinds of decisions. Roswitha talks about tetralemma for difficult decisions. I don't know what that is. Please make a post in the group. That sounds fascinating. I have no idea what that is. Okie doke. So hopefully that helped with the whole decision-making question. We're about to wrap up here. So again, open loops are open loops because there's a dilemma at the heart of them. Often the dilemma is just, if I do this, I can't do that. I just won't have time to do that other thing, and I can't quite give that other thing up. So being conscious about this and understanding that you have to give the other thing up that is required in order to do this thing, knowing that is very empowering. It's also disappointing. Like, oh, I wish I had all the time for all the things, but you don't. So if you know that choosing one means choosing not to do the other, and you've been practicing with the not threes, then that's going to really help you move forward with stuff and close those loops. So this is becoming a theme, guys. What I want to assign you for today's sort of homework, book club homework, is to find something in your open loops list that you've looked at and you said, yeah, I've been holding this as something I think I ought to be doing, but I really don't think I should be doing it for various reasons. Like, I've faced the dilemma and realized that if I do this, I'm not going to get to this other thing. This other thing is more important. Choose something that involves another person. And the reason you've been avoiding it is that you have to talk to that person and tell them you're not going to do the thing that they want you to do, or you think they want you to do. Sometimes you even just imagine they want you to do it. Identify that thing and talk to that person and tell them you're not going to do it. That is your homework for open loops. Close a loop that involves somebody else and close it by not doing it. You can also close loops that involve other people by doing it. And that is an additional level of the homework. But the first level is like, find the stuff that's on there, that's sitting there because you don't want to do it. You've decided basically not to do it, but then you have to tell somebody about it and you haven't been able to quite face that yet. That is where we're going to do this. We're going to leave this for today. And next time, I think just in the nick of time, we're going to get to the should monster and all of those feelings that all this stuff brings up and how complicated it all is to try to deal with these kinds of open loops and deal with other people and all these feelings. So, oh, I love this. Annette says she knows exactly which one it is and has been putting it off for years. Perfect, Annette. I want to report back. I want to hear what you did about that. Anton says, yikes. Yep, it's yikes, but you know it has to happen. And Liz says, it sounds so stressful. You know what? It's stressful in the moment, and as soon as it's over, it feels like, whew, like when you let that thing go, it is amazing. Seriously, it's amazing. All right, well, thanks for being here today, you guys. It looks like we had a better time with tech today, so let's hope this continues. And thank you so much. See you next time.